Okay, text 40. Indriyani manobudhir hasyadishthanamuchyate etar vimohatyatesha jnanamavrittadehinam. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust, which veils the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Text 41. Tasmat tvam indriyanyado niyamya bharatarshava papmanam prajayenam jnanam vijnanam nashanam. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this great destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. Text 42. Indriyani paranyahur indriyebhya param manaha manasastu parabudhir yo budhe paratastu saha. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher. Oops. Sorry, I lost my page. Okay, the working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And the soul, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. Text 43. Evam budhe param bhudva sangstabhyatmanamadmana jahi shatru mahabaho kama rupam durasadam. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to material senses, mind, and intelligence, one should control the lower self by the higher self, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. Chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge. Text 1. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Imam Vishvate Yogam Proktavanaham Avyayam Vivaswan Manave Praha Manur Ikshvakave Bravit. The Blessed Lord said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god, Vivaswan, and Vivaswan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. Text 2. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakaleneha mahata yogo nashta parantapa. The supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. Text 3. Sevayam ayatedya yoga prokta puratanaha bhaktasi me sakacheti rahasyam hetarutamam. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you because you are my devotee as well as my friend. Therefore you can understand the transcendental mystery of this science. Text 4. Arjuna uvacha aparam bhavato janma param janma vivasvataha katametad vijaniyam tamado proktavaniti. Arjuna said, the sun god, Vivaswan, is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed this science to him? Text 5. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavacharjuna tanyaham virasarvani natam veta parantapaha. The Blessed Lord said, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. Text 6. Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishwaropi san prakritim swamadhishtaya sambhavam yatma mayaya. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all sentient beings, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadhatmanam shrijamyam. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Okay, so back to text 40. Text 40, the senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust, which veils the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Purport. The enemy has captured different strategic positions in the body of the conditioned soul, and therefore Lord Krishna is giving hints of those places, so that one who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Mind is the center of all the activities of the senses, and thus the mind is the reservoir of all ideas of sense gratification. And as a result, the mind and the senses become the repositories of lust. Next, the intelligence department becomes the capital of such lustful propensities. Intelligence is the immediate next-door neighbor of the spirit soul. Lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identify itself with matter, and thus with the mind and senses. The spirit soul becomes addicted to enjoying the material senses and mistakes this as true happiness. This false identification of the spirit soul is very nicely explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yasyatma buddhi kunape chidatuke swadi kalatradishu bhoma idhyadihi yat tirtha buddhi salite nakar hichij janeshwabigeshu saeva gokara. A human being who identifies this body made of three elements with his self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsmen, who considers the land of birth as worshipable, and who goes to the place of pilgrimage simply to take a bath rather than meet men of transcendental knowledge there, is to be considered as an ass or a cow. Jai. Maharaj, we would love to hear from Maharaj, please. Thank you.
This is a good little test. This last verse, the test identifies, so those who identify this body as being themselves. That's everyone, because practically everyone thinks of themselves as being the body. And you ask, who are you? He gives his name, he gives his weight, he gives his age, everything to do with the body, but nothing about the soul. So that's the first part of the test. Everyone qualifies to be in this category. Then the next one is, considers the byproducts to be of the body to be his kinsmen. That's the relatives, family members. These are my parents, these are my uncles, these are my children. So he's all absorbed in that. And you see, that's quite common too, that people become attached to that. And then even now, in a negative way, they say it's a woman's right to choose what she wants to do with her own kinsmen in terms of children. So they're taking this to all the byproducts they take as their kinsmen. They belong to them. And the third one is, considers land of birth as worshipable. That's nationalism. We see people fight for their country or for their particular body, a group of people, a race, or some people who have certain things in common, and they fight for that. It's another, for those who think that's worshipful. Have you ever gone to where you used to live? You can't help but tell someone if they're with you. You can't drive by it and not say something. You have to say, I used to live there. As if the person really, as if it means anything. But it means so much to the person, I used to live there. Because he thinks that it's a worshipable place. Why? Because I lived there. I was born there. And then when it goes to a place of pilgrimage, simply to take a bath, rather than, well, that's quite common. People go on to Acapulco or Cancun, and they go places where there's some nice water. They take a bath, take a swim, but they're not interested in finding out transcendental knowledge there. And we see in India, they go to holy places, they take their bath. But it's compared to the elephant who takes a bath very nicely, but after he gets out of taking the bath, he throws dirt all over his body. So it kind of defeats the purpose of bathing and put all the dirty things back in. So that's what we do. In different faiths, they have different ways of doing that. Prayaschitta, they confess that I shouldn't have done this, and I did it. I won't do it again. The next week, he's back again. I did it again. So they don't really get the idea. They don't get this scientific approach, and that's why this is so nice. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is giving a very scientific explanation that your problem is lust. Your enemy is lust. And so he says, well, lust, I don't know what that is. Where is it? It's captured. Captured in different parts of the body, these places. So you'll find lust lurking there. In the senses, in the mind, the intelligence. So it has to be purified, and that's the description of Krishna, how it gets purified.
Thank you, Maharaj. Yeah, the analogy is given like the elephant cleaning himself and then immediately throwing dust on himself. And in the Nectar of Instruction, we read about that in the first mantra, the first text, where Prabhupada basically he begins by saying, by recalling the conversation between Shukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit, where Maharaj Parikshit's asking him that question, basically, like, why do people go on committing sin and then repent? What's the use of that? And basically, the interesting thing is that is the kind of the philosophical basis for a lot of the monotheistic religions in the world. All of them, Christianity comes to mind particularly. Well, that's it. You go, you commit some sinful activity. You do the things that you read that God doesn't want you to do, and then you repent for these activities, and that's kind of the practice, But it's such a waste of time, Real atonement, real prayaschitta is actually giving up sins altogether, to just stop giving up sins. But in order to do that, we have to be engaged in devotional service. Like Krishna says, the Bhagavad Gita at the end of it, Sarva dhamma prityacha, mamekam sharanam vraja, aham tam sarva papibhyo mokshe shami ma suja. So just by engaging in devotional service, Krishna actually, he takes care of we don't commit sins anymore. We get higher taste, don't have to do those activities. We accept higher activities, give up the lower activities. But preliminary knowledge is that we should understand that we're not those things. I'm not this body, I'm not this mind. I'm not at the center of reality. So Krishna, therefore, he says in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Natuvaham jatu nasham natam neme janadibha nachaivan abhivishyami sarve vayamatapana. That actually, I am an individual, a supreme, actually I'm an eternal individual. Arjuna, you're an eternal individual. All the kings assembled here, eternal. So Krishna is eternal individual. He establishes that at the very beginning. So there's no way that we can confuse it. So we have a clear conception. Okay, God, he's an eternal individual. And I am also an eternal individual. And then we're part and parcel of this spiritual, eternal, supreme spirit. Eko ahunam yovadidati kama. Wait. Nitya nityana chetanas chetananam. Right, so this God, the supreme spiritual being, is providing for all the other eternal living entities, the innumerable other eternal living entities. That we should have this conception in mind, and that he's a person. That's very important. He's an individual, a person, personal. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. So that is the point of the Vedas, so that we have the clear conception of who actually is God. God is a person, spiritual person, individual. I am also a person, but I'm totally dependent on him, and he's totally independent. Dharmantu Sakshat Bhagavat Pranetam. And, Vedaista Sarvaraham Eva Vedaha. This knowledge, the Vedas, God is to be known. And what is here is actually coming from God. It's God's, what God is sanctioning, what God likes, what God doesn't like, what He approves of, all these different things, What He's got to say to us is here. And so the intelligent position is to take it, to listen to that, instead of listening to the mind, listening to some other individual. Why? I mean, even if you're skeptical, if somebody hands you this book and says, please, goes out of their way to give you this book and says, please read this. It's actually spoken by Krishna, who's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Well, if you're intelligent, you take it and you just sincerely give it a read. That's the intelligent position. And you read it and, okay, there's knowledge there. That knowledge is illuminating my consciousness with light, and suddenly I'm able to see, okay, who am I? Oh, I've got a mind. I'm not my mind. I've got a body. I'm not my body. I've got intelligence. I'm not my intelligence. And all these things are really contaminated, actually. Just like verse in Bhagavatam. Krishna Varnam Tusha Krishna Sangopangascha Parshadam. Yogya Sankirtana Praya Yajanti Hi Sumedhasaha. Yajanti Hi Sumedhasaha. The Sumedhasaha. That those with the intelligence, they actually take to this process. Because they give it a try, and then once you give it a try, you realize, oh, okay, this is it. This is the goal of life. It's real. If you don't give it a try, then a sincere try, then sure, you can go on continuing and remain kind of aloof from reality, not ever knowing, but the second you give it a sincere try, the conviction is there, knowledge is there. So God is a person, and that conclusion is found throughout all of the Vedas. And we can see that it's what is conducive for our relationship with God is glorified in the Vedas, and what is not conducive for that is condemned. There are rules and regulations given, different processes are given. Actions which are sanctioned by the Lord, actions which are not sanctioned by the Lord. And so if we're intelligent, we just listen to them and we realize fully, okay, I'm seeing that, I'm becoming disentangled from this material mess. Everything that's reality is becoming more clear. Everything is becoming more clear, So I'm becoming freed up from the suffering of material anxieties and it's satisfying, and that's self-evident. And when it's satisfied, it's just totally self-evident, So, and all your questions are answered immediately. There's no more doubting. When one is totally satisfied with his relationship with God, there's no more questions. Everything is there. It's so nice, So this is what we're being offered. This is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give, and his associates, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, they came to give this opportunity, bestow love of God to the conditioned souls. So we have to be intelligent, and we have to take it, right now. No waiting. Because, we're just waiting and we're just suffering, so take it now. So, we're chanting Hare Krishna, because the Vedas are about Krishna, Krishna is about the Vedas. Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, that all these things, the Lord, Hari, Guru, his bona fide representative, the devotee, the sadhu, and the Shastra, they're all transcendentally, absolutely on the same platform, So, we're hearing from Krishna when we read the Bhagavad Gita, and we're doing what he says, and we're doing what Srila Prabhupada says, because Srila Prabhupada is Jagat Guru. So We're doing what he says, chanting Hare Krishna 16 rounds, trying to observe the principles of that. And because Krishna is a person, and Krishna is absolute, and he's non-different from his name, he's Nami, so the name is him, and he's the name, he's his name, so we have to, because he's a person, we have to be careful. Just like any other relationship, we're doing when we have a relationship, we take no one that we care about. We take no, we spare no effort to make sure to do everything nicely for that person. So Krishna is actually providing all sense gratification to the devotees and all living entities. And so he's Govinda, he provides that sense. So we have to, because I'm just thinking in a mundane sense, like, I only really care about the people who provide me with sense gratification. So if I'm thinking like that, which I am, and most conditioned souls are, all conditioned souls are, then basically, if you're intelligent, you realize that all my sense gratification ultimately is coming from God. He's providing everything for me. So anyways, I should really pay attention to that relationship, and I should care for that relationship. Of course, that's a lesser conception. Right? Oh, I only care about God because he's providing me with some sense gratification. That's not the highest conception. But I'm on that platform, and so even then, why should I go to somebody else? Okay, so my point, I'm rambling. My point being that God's a person. So what that basically means is Satam Ninda Namna Paramam Aparadam Vitanute. Yata Kyatim Yatam Katamu Sahate Tadvigarham. Basically, Krishna, there are things that we do which will obstruct the love that the relationship we have with this person, just like any other person. So we have to be careful, and the first offense, Satam Ninda, Krishna says that the greatest offense is actually blaspheming the sadhu. And the sadhu is one who's dedicated his life to chanting Hare Krishna. He's dedicated his life to actually getting the conditioned souls to chant and dance and sing and take the books and read the books, Srila Prabhupada's books. So, we can see that, like, if you're hanging out with your friend and you invite somebody over, and your friend is that guy you invite over, he's totally rude to your friend, but he's like kissing up to you. This is this is not actually pleasing, or like that. So. My point being that all these injunctions of the Vedas ultimately are coming to this point, that actually I am an individual and God's also an individual, and what matters is my relationship with Him. But like I said, Hare, Guru, Vaishnava, Bhagavata Gita. Vaishnava is also there, right? So that's a part of Krishna. We should recognize what actually is Krishna. What is Krishna? The Shastra, the Vaishnava, the Guru, His name, His abode. And we have to be very personal with all of those features of the Lord, to avoid those offenses. But it's interesting that the first one is Satam Ninda. The first offense that's given is actually offending the Vaishnava. Well, that just shows how much the Lord actually cares about his devotee. He really cares about his devotee. So, and that's also given so many places in Shastra, that actually the process is worshipping the devotees, worshipping the lotus feet of the devotees. Echai gosai kore charana vandan, jaha hoite bignanash avishta puran, jaha hoite bignanash avishta puran. Actually, by worshipping the feet of the devotees, the pure devotees, the six Goswamis, Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada's representatives, that all obstructions in spiritual life are immediately vanquished. Jaha hoite bignanash abhishta puran. That all the obstacles are removed. I'm just thinking about this today because we were washing dishes and something came up about lotus feet. You know, and I remember thinking, lotus feet, it's interesting, we talk about lotus feet a lot. Lotus feet a lot. But, you know, the feet are considered to be the lowest part of the body. I mean, the lowest part of the body. They're walking everywhere. They're doing a lot of hard work for the rest of the body, touching the dirty floor like that. But the Shastras are glorifying the lotus feet of the devotee, you know. So that's how exalted the devotee is, that even his feet are lotus feet. They're so soft and so wonderful. And the abode of all mercy, all nectar is coming from the lotus feet of the Lord. Nitai pada kamala koti chandra shushitala. That the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda are more cooling than millions and millions of moons. Nitaya karuna habe vraja Radha Krishna pabe. Daro nitai charana dukani. And actually, you can't get to the Lord, Shri Radha Krishna, without actually grasping on to the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. So, you know, and we sing this song every day, Shri Guru Charana Padma. So we're worshipping the lotus feet of the Guru, you know, the Vaishnava. And that is supremely pleasing to the Lord. And by doing so, actually, we're able to come to Him very quickly. All offenses, Jai, Shishigoni Taiki Jai. So all offenses that are there are just, all obstacles are removed. So, yeah, the Lord is a person and He really likes when we're very much attentive to His devotees. So let's continue. I'm rambling. Okay, so text 41. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. The Lord advised Arjuna to regulate the senses from the very beginning, so that he could curb the greatest sinful enemy, lust, which destroys the urge for self-realization. And specifically, knowledge of the self. Jnanam refers to knowledge of the self as distinguished from non-self, or in other words, knowledge that the spirit soul is not the body. Vijnanam refers to specific knowledge of the spirit soul, and knowledge of one's constitutional position and his relationship to the Supreme Soul. It is explained thus in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Jnanam paramam guyam ne yad vijnanam samanvitam. Sarahasyam tarangam chagra grihana gaditam maya. The knowledge of the self and the Supreme Self is very confidential and mysterious, being veiled by a maya. But such knowledge and specific realization can be understood if it is explained by the Lord Himself. So this knowledge of the self and the Supreme Self is very confidential and mysterious, being veiled by maya. Mam eva ye prapadante mayam etam tarantite. Actually, if one wants to cross beyond that veil of maya, he has to surrender to Krishna. And Krishna says, I think in this, there's the group of verses we read tonight, Krishna says that Arjuna, here you go. Bhakto sime sakacheti rahasyam hietar uttamam. Actually, he's revealing the science of the relationship with the Supreme. Is today told by me to you because you are my devotee as well as my friend. Therefore, you can understand the transcendental mystery of the science. So, because Arjuna is Krishna's devotee as well as his friend, therefore, he can understand it. He's qualified to understand the transcendental mystery of the signs. So we have to qualify ourselves too. And let's see, where was that? It was text 41. By surrendering ourselves to Krishna, and then we become qualified. But first we have to understand what is Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Being, so it's not just, and I'm a deeply conditioned soul who's just found out that actually I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, I'm not an American, I'm not these things. I'm a soul, so then now I'm trying to understand the Supreme Soul, the Supreme Living Being, which is quite a thing, but that requires surrender. There's not really any amount of education, mundane education, or wealth, or good parentage that will get me there. I was quoting from this song by Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Nitai Pada Kamala. I was giving some verse. There's another one that says, Vidya Kule Kikori Betar. Actually, this, the mundane education and good parentage, Vidya and Kule, they don't do it, they're useless. Actually, the real thing is to just surrender unto the lotus feet of the Vaishnava. That's the real thing. That's the real qualifying factor. That that is surrender to Krishna. Because, well, I'm in a pretty terrible condition. My intelligence is ruined by lust. So I don't have any hope. I'm like bound. My ankles and my wrists are bound by Maya. So what hope do I have except for the mercy of the devotee? I can't understand the Shastra. I don't know who's Krishna. I don't know what is Vrindavan Dham. I don't know anything. So the only thing I have is the lotus feet of the devotee, who's very mercifully having his palms open and bestowing that love of God, Please take it. Please take this mantra. Please engage yourself in devotional service. In that way, you eventually come up to that platform. So that's where we're at, So, let's see. Bhagavad Gita gives us that knowledge, specifically knowledge of the self. The living entities are parts and parcels of the Lord, and therefore they are simply meant to serve the Lord. This consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. So from the very beginning of life, one has to learn this Krishna consciousness, and thereby one may become fully Krishna conscious and act accordingly. Lust is only the perverted reflection of the love of God, which is natural for every living entity. But if one is educated in Krishna consciousness from the very beginning, that natural love of God cannot deteriorate into lust. When love of God deteriorates into lust, it is very difficult to return to the normal condition. Nonetheless, Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even a late beginner can become a lover of God by following the regulative principles of devotional service. Okay, so tomorrow is Sri Nityananda Trayodashi. It's going to be the appearance day of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. And this is a very, very, very auspicious time for the devotees. And Nityananda Prabhu is on the left here. I'm saying that like I'm speaking to, anyways, everyone here knows this, yeah. Sri Nityananda Prabhu is on the left. So, basically, I'm not really qualified to speak so much on Nityananda Prabhu, but I just wanted to kind of, as a PSA, state that tomorrow is a very auspicious holiday, and there's going to be some nice activities and in honor of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Yeah, 4:30 in the morning. Yeah. Jai. Okay. Let's see. So from any stage of life, or from the time of understanding its urgency, one can begin regulating the senses in Krishna consciousness, devotional service of the Lord, and turn the lust into love of Godhead, the highest perfectional stage of human life. The working senses are superior. Okay, so text 42. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. Purport. The senses are different outlets for the activities of lust. Lust is reserved within the body, but it is given vent through the senses. Therefore, the senses are superior to the body as a whole. These outlets are not in use when there is superior consciousness or Krishna consciousness. In Krishna consciousness, the soul makes direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the bodily functions, as described here, ultimately end in the Supreme Soul. Bodily action means the functions of the senses, and stopping the senses means stopping all bodily actions. But since the mind is active, then even though the body may be silent and at rest, the mind will act as it does during dreaming. But above the mind there is the determination of the intelligence, and above the intelligence is the soul proper. If therefore the soul is directly engaged with the Supreme, naturally all other subordinates, namely the intelligence, mind, and the senses, will be automatically engaged. In the Katha Upanishad, there is a passage in which it is said that the objects of the sense gratification are superior to the senses, and mind is superior to the sense objects. If therefore the mind is directly engaged in the service of the Lord constantly, then there is no chance of the senses becoming engaged in other ways. This mental attitude has already been explained. If the mind is engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is no chance of its being engaged in the lower propensities. This is nice because we just have to accept instructions from the devotees and the spiritual master. You know, it's pretty simple for us. We just chant 16 rounds, do what Srila Prabhupada says, wash the dishes, sweep, and go out on Harinam and Sankirtan, distribute books. And it's nice. I mean, that's basically it, It's not so, it's blissful and simple. Evahi Kevalam. This process, Ananda, what is it? Ananda, what's the, Ananda, Evahi something? What's that? Oh, never mind. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. No, not an. I mean, yeah, but I'm wondering. There's like a particular. There's a particular verse that goes Eva hi kevalam, that this process is simple and blissful. But there's Ananda's in there somewhere. Anyways, the process is simple and blissful, and we just take shelter of Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet, his instructions, his divine instructions for us. And that's the perfection of our life. And it's nice, it's not just like, it's an active process though. Dandavat pranams, offering Dandavat pranams, falling down like a stick. I have to do it, it's an active process. It's not just, okay, I'll just go to the temple and whatever happens, happens. I mean, that's nice, but actually, there's 6 loving exchanges also for the devotees, so I have to reveal my mind to, my authorities. And so it's an active thing. Amanina Amanadena, I have to actually offer all respects to the devotees. You know, I can't just be like a stick. Even though Dandavat Pranam is a stick, I can't just sit there, you know, and not do anything. I actually have to offer respects to the devotees and to the spiritual master with my heart, you know. It's in my mind, in my actions. So that's a part of it, a part of the active process of devotional service, a big part for us, because, you know, that's where I'm at. You know, I'm simply just trying to serve the servant. Okay, so we have 4 minutes. I'll keep reading. Yes, Prabhu. Sure, yes, Prabhu. Jai. Yeah. Nityananda Prabhu is knocking on the doors of the householders in Bengal. And he's saying, please purchase me by chanting the names of Gauranga, my Lord, you know. And so, I mean, that's how we get Lord Nityananda's mercy, you know, is by, you know, chanting Gauranga's names. Gauranga is none other than Radha and Krishna, so we're chanting Hare Krishna. We're getting his mercy. But Lord Nityananda is the embodiment of the Guru Tattva. And there's the one thing that I'm thinking of is that Mahotsav Prabhu, he's got on his alarm, he's got a quote on repeat from his Guru Maharaj saying, the great, what is it? Yeah. Yeah, there's no higher mantra than the lotus feet of the Guru. And it keeps going. There's no higher mantra than the lotus feet of the Guru. There's no higher mantra. And so that's how you get Lord Nityananda's mercy, is that you can meditate on your Guru Maharaj's lotus feet, Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet of the Vaishnavas. Echal Gosai Yar Mui Tar Das. Tansabara Parameno Moda Panchagras. Actually, you know, that the dust from the lotus feet is Srila Narottam Das Thakur's sustenance. You know, he sustains himself from the dust of the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas. And that's Trinadapi Sunichana, Darorapi Suhishnuna. Humility and tolerance. And then one can chant Hare Krishna all the time, and that's supremely pleasing to Lord Nityananda. And also Lord Nityananda bestows that. But yeah, if we wanna get his mercy, then, you know, we serve the lotus feet of our Guru Maharaj and the spiritual master. Yes, Prabhu. Is it? Thank you, Prabhuji. This is a practical question. So how should I know when I'm full from eating? And also I heard that when you burp, there's some, you're saying that there's some space that's created. So then you may be able to eat more. Okay. I heard that when you burp, actually, it's a sign that you're done. So that when you burp, it's boss, it's finished, you're done, don't go. That's a sign that you should stop. That's what I've heard about the burping. But how should you know that you're full? Well, Prabhupada says that our stomach is basically 2 fistfuls. If we can hold 2 fistfuls. The stomach at like it's 2 anjalis, hands, hand palmfuls. Anjali, like Kritanjali is like folded palms. So 2 anjalis, 2 handfuls. That our stomach, when it's at its like normal size, I guess because it expands the more you put food into it, it expands to a larger size, so then it wants more and more food. But the stomach at its like normal default size can hold 2 palmfuls. So you can kind of measure that, you know. Of course, like you do a lot of service, so you want to account for that. I mean, also taking your time. Taking your time. I remember we were on this point a lot, but chewing the food, chewing the prasadam while you're honoring it is also nice. It's like, I always felt super disrespectful just gulping, like gulping everything down, you know, engulfing my whole prasad, like in a second. I'm like, I'm not honoring prasadam. I'm not, you know, I'm just like, I don't know, ravaging it, you know. And so if we can really honor it and relish it and take our time with it and relish it and meditate on the fact that this is prasadam, it's coming from Krishna, you know, it is Krishna, so that will help us. And then what the practical thing is that while I'm taking my time honoring prasadam and relishing it as a spiritual activity, naturally my body will be able to alert me that, okay, now I'm full. You know, before I've completely stuffed way too much into me. So I've stuffed so much into me so quickly that my body doesn't have time to tell me that I'm full. So I honor and then take my time, and then my body will tell me that I'm full. And you will understand, all right, now I'm done. I'm satisfied. Okay. Thank you so much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.